Welcome to Elevate Babe. I'm Antonia, and this podcast, I want to dive into why I'm starting this podcast and who I am and basically my origin story. And this podcast I will be bringing to you every Tuesday. So I would really appreciate it that if you are interested in these topics I'm about to dive into, that you would like and subscribe. That would be really appreciated because then it will help me to grow my podcast and, get it out to other listeners as well in time. So anyway, I'm Antonia. I'm from Cork in Ireland, of all places, even though I don't really need to mention that. But you may or may not know, but I had this podcast, Elevate Babe, before, but I was focusing in on, a specific topic of manifestation. And I was also trying to, at the same time, do a weekly YouTube video. And I just kind of found I was being inconsistent with it. But now in this day and age as well, we all have, so much information at our fingertips that we all have so many different interests. So, another big interest that I have is entrepreneurialism. So whenever, I very regularly get, a ton of ideas. I don't necessarily act on all of them, but I kind of make a note in my phone and I try and intend to maybe go back to it at some point in time, going, oh yeah, when I have time now, when I get this off the ground, I'm going to go and do that. And, these things could be in my phone for years. But anyway, the podcast was one of them. So I eventually did start, but as I mentioned, I was a little bit inconsistent, but also too with the different topics that I'm interested in, such as entrepreneurialism. Then I had another podcast on that, and then I was interested in witchcraft, and I set up another podcast on that. Then I was into music and music business, and then I set up another podcast on that. So as you can imagine, it was a lot to juggle, and so I just decided, there's too much inconsistency. I'm too busy. I've got too much going on. I'm maybe a little bit lazy. So I want to make it as easy for myself as possible. So how about I just scrap everything and just have it all in one podcast? Because surely you don't have to be that niche anymore, because podcasts are just, there's a topic on everything. But I think a lot of people as well kind of appreciate when a podcast does dive into other topics and it's not just about the one thing. So, I'm going to be talking about business. I'm going to be talking about entrepreneurialism. I'm going to be talking about my journey, my experiences, what I learn. I'm going to be talking about witchcraft a little bit as well. So if you do have any kind of questions that you are intrigued to learn about witchcraft, maybe it could be candle magic or whatever, do feel free to get in touch. And I'm happy to talk about it, and I can read up on it and I can learn a bit about it myself if it's something that I don't know about. But I've been interested in witchcraft since I was a kid. Who isn't? And I was kind of one of these kids that always felt that there was, something more, there was, a greater energy around, and basically a believer in magic. And I suppose a lot of that as well, of course, is, when you're a kid, you watch a lot of Disney and, dreams come true. You can make a wish, all this kind of thing. Loved it. Loved all that kind of stuff. And of course, now as adults, we all love, manifestation. That is where we all kind of do gravitate to. In your mind, in your logical mind, you might be like, oh, that's a load of rubbish, it's a load of woo-woo. And you're absolutely entitled to believe that. But nowadays, it's not just a case of, believing in it. It's a case that it's actually scientifically proven. You have physics, you have quantum physics, you have all these different things. Like you got the law of assumption, the law of attraction, all these juicy topics that now are actually coming out and being scientifically proven. The thing about science, though, as well, is that I wouldn't necessarily believe all science either, because it can be quite biased. Because a lot of scientists, if they discover something new, they may not be allowed to actually talk about it because it will disrupt the rhythm of things that is already going on in people's minds or in society or whatnot. So I don't know, I can't really think of an example, but a lot of scientists, they might have a new discovery and so therefore it gets repressed. And I always felt as a child that we were behind time, that I was like, there's something, and I grew up in the 90s, and I suppose I was kind of feeling like that. We're missing something. There's something that we're missing. I feel like we're in an archaic state, And now I fortunately grew up with, an abundance of everything. We had plenty of everything. And I wasn't short anything whatsoever. I had my Nintendo, I had my Ghetto Blaster, my stereo, my TV, and, a bunch of VHS tapes. And, we had Sky, and I'd be watching all these movies all the time. So I had a pretty cushy little upbringing. But at the same time too, I just knew there was something bloody missing. And I remember like, one day actually standing by my window and kind of just going, I just feel like, we should have more technology. It's just like, and then when eventually the internet was created and made more public, we had, my family had a business. So we had one of these IBM dial-up computers, and I remember like trying to, asked if I could use it, and like they would only sparingly let me use it because there was obviously a lot of like files and documentation from the business and stuff on it, so they didn't want me interfering with anything. So I'd be able to go on it just for a short period of time, like maybe like 40 minutes an hour max or something. And I remember like, I just didn't know what to look up. Now there was no Google at the time because it was just, the internet was brand new. But for want of something to look up, I just kind of was like, oh, whatever, Madonna, I was a big Madonna fan. And I just noticed then like that, like it was all over the place. It was like, the current Madonna thing was like pages and pages back in the index, and, the old Madonna stuff was here. It was just a mishmash of like some information, and there wasn't a lot there, like, but I mean, she was the biggest celebrity at the time in the world at that very time, and she kind of still is in a way, but the other celebrities have come before her. I suppose you have like Beyonce now, which is probably the Queen, or Taylor Swift, or whoever, but at the time Madonna was pretty much at the very tip top. So there was a good bit of information, but it was just very jumbled, I was kind of confused by that, like thinking to myself, like, oh my God, okay, right. So now suddenly we have like this, information technology known as the internet, and it's still shit. So it's like, okay, oh my God, like what is with this planet? Like, why are we so behind? Anyway, then, of course, eventually came the invention of the household invention. I mean, it was already invented, but like, more commonly of like the pager and the mobile. And now we have what I always thought we should have had, which is basically a smartphone and a tablet. Because I always kind of thought we should have something in our hand that has all this information. And as well, then, of course, like Google came along before that, and they indexed websites, or they index websites, and they index the internet, so things were actually in chronological order, in a sense of like, timeline, or now it's all algorithmically set up there, so basically like, if your page is like getting more views, it's going to be top, where the before I think was kind of like done in a more historical sense. It was catalogued historically. But so I just kind of always had this, feeling and notion that, there's more, we should be more. And as I mentioned, I think it's probably because I'm an old soul, but it's always intrigued me, things like, mysticism, and, the occult and witchcraft and things, and of course astrology. And I do think that, humans can and are incarnated from other beings and species and other planetary solar systems and probably other universes, because I mean, where would a kid just get the idea like that, we should have a tablet or a screen? I mean, I was brought up in the country, you know what I mean? So there's still a lot. I mean, going back to science, like there's still a lot like that. We are kept behind with a lot of information, a lot of knowledge, and a lot of technology. They release it slowly because they just feel that like we're not going to be able to handle it. But of course we can, because humans rather, are extremely adaptable, and can handle anything once they're told the truth. No matter how, maybe no matter how no matter how their brain works, even if like, they, not saying anybody particularly is, but even if they're completely, dumb and stupid, like, they can fathom what people are telling them, and if they have questions, they can be answered, like, because as kids, we always have questions. And it's just the same as any human wanting to learn a new technology or a new topic or a new subject, or educate themselves further on something. You just ask questions, and those questions can and should be answered. So anyway, I'm ranting now, but basically, I'm going to be talking about like all these little juicy things on this podcast. And I'm going to be just basically kind of talking about my journey and any kind of experiences I have myself, or any sort of, even progress with, entrepreneurialism. A hobby that I have taken up very, very recently that I have wanted to do for a very, very long time is, believe it or not, DJing. So I'm currently learning to DJ at the moment, and it's something that I'm really enjoying and I'm passionate about because I'm passionate about music as much as all the rest. So I am going to be a big proponent of encouragement as well on this podcast of if anybody is sat on an idea, if anybody has thoughts that they want to take up a hobby or this, that, or the other, I would 100% always say go for it. Just do it. Just go for it. Because, what have you got to lose? Life is fleeting, life is short, and that's just the facts. So if you're not going to do it now and you didn't do it before, well, then when are you going to do it? Now is always the perfect time, which is again why I've decided to do this podcast and kind of just bring all my favorite topics into this podcast, because I think that with everything in the world now, everybody has come across or has knowledge on or interest in a multitude of different topics, as do I clearly. So therefore, why not bring them all together on one podcast? So I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe and if you would follow, subscribe, and like. And I will be bringing out podcasts every Tuesday. Now, I'm hoping to bring you a video every Tuesday as well. And that's one of the reasons why I kind of, slid down the slope of inconsistency with the previous podcast. And that was because, I just wanted to do a video and I would put on a whole load of makeup and then come here and I'd be like, oh, I look like crap. And just be like, oh no, I look terrible on the camera, because the lighting wasn't right and so many different things. Like, so it's like, right, okay, I'll do it tomorrow, and then of course tomorrow turn into next week, and next week would turn into next month, etc. You get the gist. But anyway, this is my old bed behind me. So my furniture is up in a bit of a heap at the minute. This is like my kind of office room and my spare room, but it's my office. But like I got a new bed in my own bedroom recently, and so therefore this bed behind me is just there because I'm currently selling it. So but I'm not in any rush. I mean, if someone picks it up to pick it up, so I mean, this might be the background for a little bit, but it will all change pretty soon, trust me. But in the meantime, yesterday I actually finally got blinds in this room because, as I mentioned, it was an office, so I didn't need to get blinds because there wasn't anybody sleeping in here. And so it's after making a world of difference. Like, I'm not even wearing any makeup now, put on a little bit of Vaseline and like some glasses, and it looks much, much better than it did when I was bloody covering my face in makeup and trying to get the lighting right. It was just all sorts of wrong. So if I can like hop on here every Tuesday and be able to do a YouTube video, I absolutely will. But if I don't do a video with this podcast, I will be bringing you the podcast regardless every single Tuesday. So again, please do like and follow. And I am so, so excited to have you with me again in the future.